Redditors who went to high school with a celebrity, what were they like before they were famous? Went to high school with Drake. He put 3 separate dollars into a vending machine before he realized it was broken. At that point he was famous as the wheelchair guy from Degrassi. He put 3 separate dollars into a vending machine before he realized it was broken. That is the most Drake thing I've ever heard. Grew up in the city in between the cities where Chris Pratt and Anna Faris grew up. My older brother knew Anna through other friends. And Chris used to sell me cheeseburgers when I'd go to the car show in the parking lot of King Charlie's where he worked. To my knowledge they didn't know each other yet. My dad went to high school with the voice of Patrick Star. He was actually a really smart, popular, nice guy. He was also naturally goofy. My dad went to the same high school as Steve Harvey and told me he couldn't believe it when he discovered he was famous because Steve hardly ever said anything and was the shy kid. Taylor Lautner went to my high school. He was a year ahead. He was also a kinda weird kid. I remember him rolling around on the floor in his video production class. There was also that time the Elephant Bar was mobbed with paparazzi in town cause he went there with his NGF Taylor Swift. I also rented a library book with Ashley Tisdale's name in it. Good ole Santa Clarita. My high school Spanish teacher took an English class at UCLA with James Franco as the professor. She FaceTimed him during class one day and it was the coolest thing ever. Apparently he's super smart and really down to earth. I was a year behind Zach Galifianakis in elementary and high school. He seems like pretty much the exact same guy he was years ago down to earth. Super funny and a little goofy. He was also a Boy Scout. My older sister went to school with Brad Pitt. He asked her out once and she agreed to go. But the night before their date, her ex called and they made up and she cancelled the date with Brad. Your sister done it up. Was friends with P-Run star Megan Rain in middle school and high school. We had played together in 7th or 8th grade and we would walk whenever we had to run a mile. She walked cause she was a stereotypical pretty girl who never ran. And I was fat. So we made friends. She moved schools in high school and I still saw her from time to time around town. Last I saw her was when I ran into her downtown a couple weeks before I found out she did PRN. Went to the same high school as Ian Somerhalder. Everyone said he was really chill and no one believed him when he said he had a modeling contract. My boyfriend's mother was Sandra Bullock's college roommate at ECU. She said that Sandy was very driven and serious about her work. Which is probably why she is the accomplished actress she is today. My dad went to high school with Jon Stewart and had Teller from Penn and Teller as his Latin teacher. My dad was a senior when Jon Stewart was a freshman. So he doesn't know anything about him. But he loved having Teller as a teacher. Supposedly Penn and the other guy they started out with would come in to practice tricks. Also, he talked. My dad hated high school and skipped a lot of classes. But he really enjoyed his Latin classes. He passed that on to me. So really, Teller is responsible for my minor in classical language. I find it hilarious that a celebrity famous for being silent is a language teacher. My mom went to high school in Michigan with Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. She said they were always making movies and were both pretty big dorks but everybody loved them. She even showed me old pictures of them filming the school news in her ebooks. I went to school with Margot Robbie. She was in her final year when I started high school. She was one of the mentors that I had in the first year of high school. And she seemed like a pretty normal person. Very kind. I think she already had a little bit of fame at this point but I was none the wiser to it. Went to school with Lord Takapuna Grammar. She wasn't particularly cool or weird. But when we were 17 she hit on my friend at a party and he was like you're 14. Off. Her sister's a real bitch though. Apparently. Huh. I was thinking. I had no idea Lord's real name was so weird. I need some sleep. I always thought Katy Perry, then Katie Hudson, was kind of an idiot when we were in high school together. Then she dropped out after about 6 months. Got her GED. and made millions. Guess she was smarter than I thought. Martin Garrix went to the same high school I went to. TBH, he's a really chill and nice dude. He didn't go to my high school, but I grew up really close to Justin Bieber and I had friends that were close to him. One of them was actually in his movie. The Biebs brought him down to LA for a vacation. Don't really know much about how he used to be, but everyone used to make fun of him for the videos he used to put on YouTube singing. Then they all miraculously wanted to be besties after he got discovered. Barely counts, but when I was getting a tattoo, a Bruno Mars song came on and my artist started laughing and said he went to elementary school with him. Apparently all he remembers anytime he hears him is that he his pants on a field trip and cried until he was picked up by his mom. My dad went to high school with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Anytime we see him in anything he always says that guy is such a douchebag. Went to high school with Jeremy Lin. He was nice, didn't cause trouble, and seemed happy being focused on basketball. My dad went to school with Renee Zellweger. He hated how she would call our town a small town when she talked about it on TV, complaining about how there was nothing to do. I remember him saying she lived down the street from the movie theater. Went to high school with P.K. Subban. He was in his last year and I was a first year, still making friends. I met this one girl who seemed nice enough but a little strange. Well, turned out she was only attracted to black men. And being a small town, there were only a few black guys at our school. She set her sights on P.K. and followed him around like a lost puppy. It was very embarrassing. But he always let her down easy and was very kind. At this point I was starting to think this girl was a little obsessive and started dialing back our friendship. Last straw was after several times of being let down easy by P.K. and still obsessing over him. She bought him a puppy for Valentine's Day. Went to school and I'm still friends with Stevie from Malcolm in the Middle. He's a really down-to-earth guy, loves all his friends. My aunt and her friends went to school with John Mayer. One of her friends used to bully Mayer all the time. Now he's an alcoholic and hates his life. Who's alcoholic and hates his life? The friend who bullied or John Mayer? Or both? I went to school with Dave. From Dave's Tire and Auto. He's the one on the commercial about 4 AM on the public access. Yeah, that guy changed, man. He used to be cool. Scott Disick was a douche. I know it says high school, but I went to college with Jason Derulo. Was a really nice guy. Watched him play Seaweed in Hairspray his last semester. Did he announce his name every time he entered a room? Till everyone knows Taylor Swift. And they all hate her, lol. Didn't go to school with him. But Eminem did a speech at my school when I was about 14. I walked out of the auditorium halfway through to go hang out with my then girlfriend. After his speech, Eminem toured the school. My girlfriend and I saw him and jokingly called out his name. To which he heard us and came over to chat for a few minutes. Pretty cool reward for skipping class and hanging out in the halls. Very down-to-earth guy. I went to high school with a girl whose dad was Jeffrey Dahmer's roommate in college. My dad went to the same high school as Ron Jeremy. Janitors hate him. Not high school, but middle school, 6th grade. I sat across Tyler the Creator for one semester. But he was in my class all year long. He was always making stupid jokes, and of course inappropriate jokes here and there. He broke my pen and said I could just go buy another one, lol. He was always chatty, talking about his favorite hip hop artists. The Neptunes and N.E.R.D. I believe. Towards the last few days of school, our teacher brought a camcorder to record the class. And he wanted to do a rap battle with another classmate sitting in our group. The entire class roared with laughter and I wish I could remember why. But the opponent sat down afterwards. I didn't know he was Tyler the Creator until a few years ago. Crazy that he's famous now. And his humor is still intact. Never met Taylor Swift in person, but we had lots of friends in common. They all didn't like her cause she was really annoying and super odd. Do they count as friends if they didn't like her? My grandmother knew Elvis in high school. She was tanned like copper, so he always called her Penny. Don't know much else. She died before I was born. I can try to get some more info from my mom. My uncle used to sit next to Nicole Kidman on the bus to school. He says she was the classic pale, freckly and shy ginger kid that really kept to herself. Strange how someone who is so shy and introverted becomes such an outgoing and charismatic adult. Puberty, I guess. My mom went to high school with Prince, 1 year below him, and said he was a pretty chill guy. My girlfriend went to high school with Kal Penn. She says he was a super nice guy who was voted most likely best in about 5 different categories on top of being class president. He went on a road trip with my girlfriend's sister to visit Stanford too. She says they were all so proud when he got his first role. My dad went to school with Hugo Weaving before he got into NIDA. My dad also tried to talk him out of a career in acting after they graduated high school because he had no talent and would not make any money even if he did. Life lesson. Dad's not always right. To answer the question, he is and was. Co-worker went to high school with Paulie D from Jersey Shore. Said nothing about him stood out. Unsurprising sentence is unsurprising. My sister's best friend's mom went to high school with Tom Cruise in NJ. She said he was dirt poor, weird and lied a lot. In her words, short little chubby thing would follow me around. She said his teeth were all laid up, and when he said he was taking acting classes everyone thought he was bolting because he lied all the time. She said if I knew he was going to be famous, I would have been nicer. Pause. Now he was weirdo then and a weirdo now. Full stop. I went to school with the great Kit Duncan. I went to high school with both of Michael Jordan's kids. The elder one, Jeff, was laid back and very quiet. The younger one, Marcus, was very flashy and loved attention. Horace Grant's son went there too and was very loud and odd. My grandpa used to work on the set of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and knew Will Smith personally. He introduced my parents to him and the three of them remain friends until this day. Nicki Minaj was 2 years ahead of me in high school. We weren't close at all. She went by Cookie back then. She was much darker skinned and had a bigger nose and no boobs or butt to speak of. She was very loud and attention seeking but nice to everybody. Went to college with Rami Malek. He is now the lead of MR Robot and killing it in Hollywood. We text occasionally but that is it. Haven't stayed close since college. Had P.E. class with Ryan Ross, original guitarist of Panic at the Disco. It was his senior year, so he and a friend goofed off during the entire course and gave everyone in the class nicknames. They called me Ben because I wore glasses and looked smart. My name is Chris. Another kid they called Blanca from Street Fighter. You can imagine why. Overall, he really was a nice guy. Didn't go to high school with him, but I live a few houses away from Mitch Mama. Is that how you spell it? Comma from the Leafs. His house burned down last summer and the whole neighborhood stood around and watched. My friend's mom went to high school with the pro wrestler George the Animal Steel. He was the guy who used to play an insane guy who would eat the turnbuckles. He asked her on a date and she went with him and said he was really nice, but they both decided they just didn't quite hit it off. They remained friends, though. My brothers went to elementary school with Brandon Flowers from The Colors. They said he was a fun kid to hang out with, but they only went to school with him for a couple of years before Brandon moved to Vegas. My life is oddly intertwined with Miley Cyrus in a few ways. 1. She and her dad went to the church in my area and she was always well behaved and just like anyone else. She also didn't stay long, but was comfy enough with one person in my family to let him sit next to her in the pew. 2. My elementary school music teacher This 60-plus-year-old guy who was balding with a Duck Dynasty beard took his teenage daughter to try out and be an extra in the Hannah Montana movie. The casting people picked him instead of his daughter. He didn't even audition. Went to school with Sheryl Crow. She was sweet and quiet and very talented but lived in the shadow of her older sister, Karen Crow, who was amazing. Went to school with, and performed with, Meghan Trainor. She was always super nice and genuine and friendly to everyone. Personally, I think her entitled persona is just a shtick for controversy. I went to school with Raven-Symoné. It was crazy. Every week something new was happening. Usually a humorous misunderstanding that led to some wacky antics. Just kidding. She was a couple of grades below me. I think I talked to her once and it was along the lines of the library is in the main hall. Went to high school with Willie Nelson's sons and Woody Harrelson's daughter. Willie's sons were awesome. Ultra talented. Down to earth guys. Mika was more hippie-ish than Lucas. But they were both very humble. Woody Harrelson's daughter was a smockish and I later found out long after HS that she had a crush on me. FML. She was also really cool. Not spoiled at all. And someone you could actually shoot the with. His daughter looks a lot more like his wife than him. One of my best friend's dads owned a big construction company and he built their houses so they would all play poker at our house sometimes. Crazy times, man. High school was pretty damn enjoyable to say the least. My, now former, band director had Ken Griffey Jr. in class and said he was the typical baseball player. But other than that was a cool guy that liked to joke around with all different groups. My great-grandmother went to high school with Andy Warhol. How many schools did Taylor Swift go to? There's a PRN star named Rachel Midori whatever who I was kinda friends with in high school. She was pretty popular but very quiet. The nice girl you'd find in the library. Now she does weird butt stuff. It's always the quiet ones. Kelly Clarkson. One time she got all the way to school before realizing she wasn't wearing shoes and had to go back home. Went to school with Gigi Hadid. She was the hottest girl there, so I mean everyone knew she was going to be big. Found the rich kid. Went to high school with Mike Will Made It. Sat next to him in geometry my freshman year, his sophomore. He was pretty quiet for the most part. Okay with the schoolwork as far as I remember. Even the people he talked to didn't seem to know all that much about him and kinda teased him for how quiet he always was. Started hearing whispers of him hanging with Gucci by my junior year, 2006, and then he blew up like 4-5 years later. I was good friends with Minkus, Lee Norris, in middle school and high school. He kinda set me and my now wife up over AOL. He was and is a great guy. But haven't spoken to him in probably 5 years. My hubs knew The Big Show, a WWE wrestler. When they both worked at a car sales place before he was The Big Show. Said he was a nice man. If a bit intimidating because he is huge. And the size of hams. Not high school. But my uncle is Jack Black's stunt double. I've gotten to meet him a few times. He just behaves exactly how he does in his movies. Just a goofy guy. From what my uncle says. He's a super nice as far as actors go. Went to high school with PRN star Dakota Sky. Was also in marching band with her. She was gross and pretty rude. My TA went to high school with Taylor Swift. She said she was a mean girl. I went to the high school that is a rival of Taylor Swift's high school. Her high school literally has a shrine there dedicated to her. I hear stories of how nasty she is all the time. My aunt went to high school with Barack Obama in Hawaii. She said he was a really friendly guy and was very smart and courteous. Someone I went to school with has very recently become an adult film star. I'm not sure if I'd even say star. He's just well known now in the area for doing PRN. It's a bit weird. I wasn't there then. But I go to the same high school that Adam Driver did. My art teacher attended the school with him and said he was very quiet and reserved. Not high school. But my brother went to preschool with Jacob Sartorius. They were kind of friends. And he had a huge 6th birthday party with a Spider-Man impersonator and a cotton candy machine. Don't really remember anything about him beyond that. He was supposed to attend the school we are both at, but is pretty much universally hated at this point. It is kind of funny to hear a bunch of seniors curse out a would-be freshman for being a stuck-up prick though. Connor McDavid was one of the most quiet kids I've ever met. He was already pretty famous at this point. But I attended a wedding that Ed Sheeran was also at. He sat at our table. Seemed very high and talked almost non-stop about some girl he was in love with. Showed everyone at the table photographs of her and everything. Not gonna lie. It was a bit intense and weird for what was generally a pretty low-key event. My husband's older sister went to high school with Riff Raff. My Mill and Phil still live in their $600 K plus Texas home in the same block as his parents. She says she was the kid everyone expected to drop out and be a rapper. But was a typical rich white guy so no one expected it. My mom went to high school with Jenna Jameson. She was apparently very sweet and nerdy as. My dad went to school with Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords. He was pretty much how you'd expect him to be. Awkward. Kinda weird and a loner. Not me. But my sister says Bo Burnham hasn't changed a micrometer. Went to junior high school with Robert Downey Jr. He was very much like many of the characters that he often plays in movies, always trying to make the quick joke. Sometimes I can't separate his character, especially in his early movies, from the kid I knew in JHS because that is exactly the way he acted back then. We were also in a drama class together one year and the teacher used to constantly make a joke where he basically wondered aloud why Downey was here in the class, adding that his father, a writer and filmmaker, was going to get him a bunch of jobs through his connections. Also, one time he got the kicked out of him by another kid for dating a girl that the other kid liked. Also went to school Diane Lane, who no one liked, and John Cryer, who was a really nice kid. Not entirely sure if this counts, but I was in a few of the same classes as Echosmith's bass player Noah C. Rota back in grade school. You know the Like the Cool Kids song? He left my hometown when we were in 6th grade. Assuming the reason why was BC, his parents wanted him an LABC of the record company's contacts, etc. Anyways, honestly not much has changed. They were still all super kind. Noah was quirky but in an endearing way. Many teachers liked him. too. He was in the GATE program and in a few honors courses. I don't know too much about his siblings though. Graham was very small, so I don't remember much about him. They did a talent show together though with a few of their friends one year. I believe Sydney is allergic to candy. 2. Jamie was separated BC, he was in junior high at the time. I want to say he won a superlative that year. Side note. I went to a K-8th grade school. Noah was a cool kid emo. At least from what I saw. My grandma allegedly babysat Chad Kroger from Nickelback. Does grandma ever sit you down with the photo album and just, well, look at this photograph? I went to the same high school as Michael Bublé. I found out by looking at the grad class pictures. He was class of 93. I always wondered why they always played his music during the morning announcements. There was even a school dance dedicated to him, lol. PR agencies. This is your chance. Tell Reddit how down to earth and nice your clients are. Tell a story about something cute and silly they once did. Explain how they were fun and quirky back then and you always knew they'd be great. Taylor Swift's PR agency doesn't seem to be doing a good job then. I went to high school with Dansby Swanson, #1 overall draft pick in the MLB and hopefully a budding star for the Atlanta Braves. He was a few years older than me, but his best friend was the elder brother of one of my good friends. I have met him a few times and hung out at my friend's house with him. He is incredibly kind and very down to earth, and he's also quite religious. And his dad's name is Cuter, which is hilarious. I also know Zach Seabor went very far into one of the Voice seasons. He's kind of up his own ass and I don't particularly like him or his friends. His sister is quite cute, though. And I know a lot of college football players